And I finished.
Hello and welcome for another episode of Bean Bites. And we are live today. So if you have any questions, we are going to be discussing about the Beam Microschool. So if you have any questions, we invite you to join us. We'll have a banner shortly giving you the way to best get in contact with us. But let me introduce our guest today. We have Dr. Andrea Nelson, co-founder of Beam Education, and Mr. Brian Gelke, excuse me, Dr. Andrea Nelson, CEO and founder of B.E.A.M Education, and Mr. Brian Gelke, president of B.E.A.M Education, joining us today. Dr. Nelson, you're shaking your head there a little bit. Let's start with you. What did I get wrong? And correct me and let's get it right.
No, you got it right. You got it right. We're good. We're all a family and we spread that love. And so once you make that correction, there's nothing else that I can say but thumbs up.
All right, all right. Very good, very good. Well, we are going to be talking about the B.E.A.M Academy Microschool today, how it's different than the traditional schools that are out there and what's going on. So who wants to take the lead on the discussion today?
Well,
Brian or
I'm
Dr.
gonna
Nelson?
I'm going to jump in first because last week we had the opportunity to talk to Tracy Carter, who was a mother who has moved from traditional education to a micro school. And she talked a lot about how she can see the difference in her own daughter. And so therefore, we're going to talk a little bit more today about B.E.A.M Micro School Academy, which has a proposed opening of August 2025, because we really want to get the word out on why this is so totally different, because we are a school and a company that focuses on 21st century learning for the 21st century scholar. And so just to let you know, B.E.A.M Micro School Academy, B.E.A.M is an acronym, and B.E.A.M stands for Building Entrepreneurs Academically Mindfully. So one of the foundational pieces that is a part of our program is the fact that we have threaded and embedded entrepreneurship skills throughout our program. And as the weeks go on, we'll be sharing more with you about B.E.A.M Micro School Academy. And we will also be talking about the key elements that make it a different school. So with that, we're going to dive into some of the data on what we are seeing traditionally and what has happened when we look, because everyone's talking about reading, everyone's talking about math. And so when you look at those particular areas, we want to talk a little bit about those. And so I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Gelke.
So yes, so since I'm the math person here, data is everything. And Dr. Wilson always said, for years, data always tells the truth. And that's what exactly is happening when we look at this. So, the whole premise behind B.E.A.M, as we've said, is to make and create something different for those that need something different. So the first thing we got to do is look at the data, look at where we've been and where we're going. So if we can look at some recent data, and this data is from today. It came out today. There's some new data on both math scores and reading scores. And what's happening right now in education is there's a lot of focus on the pandemic itself and what happened during the pandemic, what happened after the pandemic. And we keep looking at this data that's coming out now, and obviously it's showing that the pandemic caused a slide in both reading achievement and math achievement. But beyond that, when you spread the data out, and that's what this new data that we've got today looks at, it shows that and questions that, is it really just the pandemic? Because like looking at these math scores, you can go back and look, the math scores from 2024 last year were actually fairly equivalent to scores in 2000 or even 2002. So you're looking at 20 years back now that the scores are kind of equivalent to today's scores. So there was this upward push But now we're 5 years outside of the pandemic, and we're still falling from that upward push. So what's really happening? Is it just the pandemic? No, there's more than just a pandemic going on
All right. So looking at that, that was the math scores. Now let's take a look at what happened during the pandemic with the reading scores. These are the reading scores right there. Dr. Nelson, did you want to talk and touch upon where we are with
Gelke's
reading?
going to talk a little bit more about those reading scores because he was the one privy to the article this morning. We did have some discussion around it, but when he talks about it, he's going to show you that you see the same occurrence going on with the scores looking a certain way, not just even after the pandemic. So I'm going to turn it over to him and let him talk a little bit more about that.
So yes, reading is even more frightful when you look at it because, I mean, obviously you can see that line there for both 4th and 8th grade students. Look at the 2024 scores and look at the beginning of this graph. That was in 1992. Those 2024 scores are now lower than the scores were in 1992. So we're talking about a huge chunk of time. And this is why right now that we're starting to question and say, it's not just a pandemic slide. This is an ongoing slide that's been happening. Scores have been pretty much stagnant or have gone down over the last 30 to 35 years. Now, on top of that, yes, let's throw the pandemic in there because you do have to talk about it because you'll see what it says at the bottom, that it's, you know, it's worth remembering that our current 4th graders were in kindergarten or during the pandemic years. And what happens in kindergarten and 1st grade? That is where you learn how to read. So what's happening is we already had lower scores on the downside. Then we threw the pandemic into the mix. And those students were, you know, they missed being in person for kindergarten, 1st grade. Some of them missed 2 years of schooling. They were either virtual or, you know, they were coming in and out of virtual schooling. So they didn't get the attention that they needed to learn how to be successful readers. So that's really what we're looking at. So that's why for B.E.A.M education and B.E.A.M Academy itself, we have to create something different because what's been going on, obviously, and this proves it, over for the past 35 years, not even including the pandemic, wasn't working. And we still haven't changed it. So what are we going to do in order to correct this? It has to change. It can't look the way it's looked. Honestly, it's not even 35 years. It's for the past 100 years it's looked this way. So what are we going to do? And that's why we believe that B.E.A.M Academy is the answer to that.
So let's just have a quick review on what we talked about last week. Last week, we gave you a definition of what a micro school is. But what I want you to think about, I want you to think about Little House on the Prairie. Everybody got that in your mind? And when you think about Little House on the Prairie, you think about a one-room schoolhouse with a multi-age classroom. So when you think about that multi-age classroom, now I want you to bring it into the 21st century. When you bring it into the 21st century, you have a multi-age classroom, which we call lower grade, and upper grade. Lower school, I got it wrong, lower school and upper school. In the lower school, we have children that range from the ages of 5 through 7. And in the upper school, you have children that range from age 8 to 11. So when you start looking at, we specifically have come up with a creation or a methodology of making sure that children are where they're supposed to be. So what I want to do is I want to ask our hostess as well as my colleague and partner, specifically, what grade did you go to 1st grade in? Mr. Trotter, what grade did you go to 1st grade in? How old were you? Excuse me.
It
How
was
old?
I think she meant age, but that's
yeah. I think I was about 6 when I went to 1st grade. And if I remember, I was so excited that I graduated from kindergarten that I ran all the way home, just excited that I graduated from kindergarten because it was a little bit of a rough start. A lot of times.
Okay, what about you, Mr. Gelke?
It was definitely 6. I definitely remember
Okay,
that.
so both
Well,
of
no,
you
you
all.
say that. No, you started 5, you turned 6. So I was actually 5 at the beginning of that year. Now that I'm
So
thinking
you're
that
like
through.
me, you had that late birthday, and so
Mm-hmm.
because I was growing up on the East Coast, and because my birthday did not fall, my birthday fell before September the 30th. I was 5
Right.
sitting in first grade,
Yeah.
but I was a 5-year older who was already reading in first grade. And so, but now this is the question that I want to pose to you. Why, with me being a reader, and I'm
Mm-hmm.
sure, Gelke, you had some math skills that were phenomenal when you were a
Mm-hmm.
child, which drew you to loving math so much.
Right.
What did they do to find out about that from you as a child? Because I don't remember, and my mother never discussed the fact that they did a possible inventory on me to see where my academic abilities lied. No one ever did that. They just said, okay, you're 5,
Mm-hmm.
you fit what the law says, and we're getting ready to put you in first
To
grade.
put you in the next grade level. Exactly. No, I don't remember doing anything back then. Major, like an assessment or something like that, so they knew where you were for
So
reading. But yeah,
So what
okay.
I want you to think about, what I want all of us to think about and the viewers to think about is specifically, why are we still placing children in a grade level based on age? Something to think about. We have all of this research. We have all of this technology on how humans learn, and the technology is so advanced that it could help us. So one of the things that we have created, if your scholar should decide, if as parents you decide that your child should attend B.E.A.M Microschool Academy, is we're going to take you through a process. And so we're going to discuss that process right now. But we're going to spend a lot of time in the next 10 or 15 minutes really discussing the scholar inventory. So what I need right now, we're going to pull up the slide because we want to talk to you about what are the steps in becoming a founding family for B.E.A.M Microschool Academy, and what do you need to do in order to be a part of the B.E.A.M movement.
All right, so I have that slide up, the steps for enrollment. Is that the slide that you wanted to start with?
Yes.
Yes.
So one thing that we've talked about a lot is the sterileness of school. Your child becomes 5 and you hear all of these news blasts out there about enroll your child in this school because we have these programs. And so you don't think about the customization of how do I welcome families into a major event, from your child moving from not being in school to now they are getting ready to expand who they are by doing the very first step, if you can go back to that. And so our very first step is called the welcome event.
Okay.
And so when you think about that welcome event, we want to know you. And we specifically want to know you and know your child. And so we will have ongoing information sessions. We will have them that are pre-recorded, that you can go specifically to our website so that you can find more out about B.E.A.M Academy, as well as we will be setting up on the website information sessions starting next week, where we will be having live information sessions about B.E.A.M Microschool Academy. And then finally, because we know how busy all parents are in the world today, the next step is that if you can attend one of our live sessions that are face-to-face or on Zoom, then there will be a pre-recorded information session that you can watch, and you'll be able to sign up and say, I want to know more information about B.E.A.M education. So I'm going to let Mr. Gelke talk about step 2.
Yes. So step 2 is that personalized. Go up one more, Mr. Trotter.
Next slide.
Yes.
There we go.
So that step 2 would be that personalized interview. So once we've made it through the welcome event and you decide based on what you heard there that you think B.E.A.M is going to be a fit for your child, we would schedule a personalized interview. So, and all that is that, we want to meet you and your family just so that we can learn more about you yourself and any educational needs that your child has. And not just needs, also what aspirations do they have? Because, like we talked about, that a huge part of B.E.A.M Academy is that entrepreneurial piece. And we have to figure out what path they want to take based on that entrepreneurial piece. So, this is getting to know your student even better and about what pathway they want to take. At that point, go ahead.
The one thing that I wanted to add about the entrepreneurial piece is a lot of times people get into their minds the fact that entrepreneurship is about running a business and creating a service. But what we would like you to consider is the broadness of what entrepreneurship can offer your child. Because if they're into science, if they're into beauty, whatever it is that they're interested in, I want you to think about what an entrepreneur needs. We don't need that slide just yet.
I'm sorry. I'm trying to anticipate and keep up with you guys. I apologize.
Okay. That's okay. So when you think about entrepreneurship, think about how many businesses fail in the first year. And so when you start thinking about how many businesses that fail, when you start thinking about Zuckerberg, when you start thinking about Apple, when you start thinking about AT&T, a lot of times when you listen to CEOs of companies, they will tell you their first company was not their company that was successful. So when you think about that, they have to have resilience. They have to have grit. They have to be able to say to themselves, you know what? It's a failure, but I can turn this failure into something else that's bright and brand new. And so that is what we want kids to walk away with, is the ability to have grit, the ability to have resilience, the ability to walk through, well, what did I not get right about this? That's problem solving. And so all of these 21st century skills help to move kids, even if they don't want to be an entrepreneur. They might want to go to medical school. And we know how difficult going to medical school can be. So therefore, being in a school that focuses on entrepreneurship also allows children to explore different paths that they want to go through. And so that is the reason why we look at the personalized interview, so that we can talk about kids' creativity. We can talk about all of those different things that make up holistically what your scholar looks like. So with that now, go ahead, Gelton.
Right. No, I was going to say, so that leads us into that scholar interview, because now that we have an idea of what your child likes and what pathway you would like your child to take, it then allows us to go into that scholar inventory to create a personalized pathway for that child. That's really what that's all about. And like you said, it doesn't mean they have to walk out with a business, but your child might be interested in cooking or something like that we could take them down that pathway, and then they realize that might lead them into, I might want to have my own restaurant one day or something like that. It's exploring those opportunities based on that child's interests. So yes, that does lead us into the scholar interview.
Okay. Now we're ready for the scholar inventory.
All right, there we go. We got that up for you.
All right. So this is a huge piece, everyone out there that is watching us today, because we have proactively decided to make a shift. So instead of saying, yes, we want to sign your child up for B.E.A.M Microschool Academy, and we're going to immediately put your student in first grade because they're 6. We're not going to do that. We're going to do some things a little bit different with the scholarly inventory. The scholarly inventory allows us, number one, to do an academic
evaluation.
Go ahead. You still with it?
I'm still here. My cord is going to go out. It scared me. Okay.
So yes, we could.
All right.
Technology. So what we're going to do, number one, is we're going to do an academic evaluation to assess where your kids' academic strengths lie and what possibly are their challenges. The next thing, what's the next thing that we're going to do, Gelke, with that
So it's
same
a
child?
so that child will then take a learning style inventory, because we all know we all learn in numerous different ways. So part of that is us at B.E.A.M Academy understanding how your child, your scholar, learns best when we put them into our environment at B.E.A.M Academy. And then the final piece is that social emotional screening. Go ahead.
So why do you all think it's so important that we really pay attention to not just one aspect of a student, but we have to look at all three: the academics, how students learn, as well as their social and emotional learning?
Because it's an ecosystem. Nothing happens by itself. We're all interconnected, and what we do has an effect on others and other situations as well.
Exactly. So when you decide that you want to be a part of the B.E.A.M ecosystem, the B.E.A.M movement, we see the interdependence of everything that we do on that campus, as well as with the children every day and their families, because we want to take it from this is how we have done it always to this is what 21st century education looks like. That there is a conversation and a dialogue that not only goes with just teachers talking to adults, but we also include children in that, in their voice and what they want and what they know that they're well at doing. And they also know where their challenges lie. And so that is what our daily work will look like, because everything that we do for the children are based on, number one, what the scholar inventory tells us, and number two, what the personalized education portfolio will guide us in how we work with your precious scholar.
Exactly. There's nothing about our approach that is a one size fits all that like is in traditional education now. So that's why we create these different personalized portfolios and use the scholar inventory to create it so that your child has their own personal pathway, and it will not look the same as the person that's sitting right next to them.
I think, though, we really need to talk about the benefits of the personalized education portfolio. So to give you a little bit background about myself, I was a reading specialist and a literacy coach. And so I was working in a school that was really having difficulty with moving children. And so about 25 years ago, so I'm dating myself, I developed the personalized education portfolio. The name has changed several times, but really it's the personalized education portfolio. And during that time when we created it, we were able to see where kids were instructionally in reading. And I know there are a lot of programs that do that with the DRA, you know, one of those programs with Dibbles. There are a lot of programs that do that. But what they don't do is they don't take those and they take in account to where kids are. But we take it to another level, because as we use that personalized education portfolio, it's not just about reading and math. It's also about science. It's also about social studies. It's incorporating an interdisciplinary look at where is your child academically and where is your child socially, because we know that basic thing is when your child graduates from college or high school, no one's going to say, well, what did you make on your STAR test? And so we have to start looking at our children more holistically, because I believe that we will close some of the gaps that we have when we start doing those things. So when you think about that personalized education portfolio, I also used it when I became an assistant principal. Then Mr. Gelke worked with me at 2 schools that I worked in, and we used the personalized education portfolio on each child that we work with. And a lot of our data meetings and our professional learning community meetings were based on what was our personalized education portfolios telling us about the student. And he will tell you, as one of those team leaders, one of my math coaches, that in one campus that we worked in, we had a 86% passing rate with 3 distinctions from the state. Another school that he and I worked together to change the trajectory of the building, it had been a low performing school. It was, when you looked at that particular district, we were 237. Within 2 years, we had moved that school up to being 51 in the district. So we know when you customize instruction for children, we know when you personalize education so that kids also understand through goal setting and conferencing with students that the trajectory changes very quick for students. Is there anything that you would like to add, Mr. Gelke?
No, just, and then, like she said, we used it at 2 different campuses, and then I went and used it at a 3rd campus after she had left, and I went on my own, and same thing happened. And you tailor the process, and you constantly tailor the process, and it was successful there too. But like she said, it's a holistic look. It incorporates also a lot of John Hattie's visible learning properties, and the fact that that holistic look allows the students to know truly where they are and what they're about and where their highs and lows are at. And it's a great process in order to get students to be successful and own their learning and truly own their learning and know where they're at. So that's why we will now incorporate this into what we do with B.E.A.M Academy, because we know it's a successful program that we've used multiple times in multiple different places with multiple different populations and been successful with it.
So with that, we're going to talk, Mr. Trotter, I'm sorry.
No, go right ahead. Please continue.
Okay, so now that we've talked a little bit about, and if you attend one of our information sessions, we can go into a little more depth so that you can see really what that process looks like, and you can see how we document what we're doing with the students, because it's done both digitally and on paper. So it's 2 ways that you'll be able to view that. So let's move to the next part. Let's talk about the next part, because this is all about B.E.A.M. So B.E.A.M will be a small school, just to let you know. It'll only, in the beginning, we're looking at 50 founding families. Now, we will move up just a little bit. Maybe we need to go up to 60 founder families. But we're going to start off really small, and each year we will add 10 to 15 more families. So in the end, B.E.A.M Microschool Academy will have no more than 175 children. That's it. So can you imagine how that's going to feel? Everyone knowing each other in that building, the activities that we can do with our children, the conversations that we can have, the fun that we have. Learning should be fun, you all. It shouldn't be drudgery. You think about a kindergartner or a 4-year-older that tastes ice cream for the first time when they're 2 and they get that first lick of ice cream. Or you think about the child who for the first time gets to see a sunset and catch fireflies. That's what education should be when our kids walk in our doors. They should have joy because I'm getting ready to do something different today. I'm getting ready to have a ball and not even realize that I'm learning. That's what we want for children at B.E.A.M Microschool Academy, is that the joy of learning is always present for them, and that everybody shows the love and care around them, not only for them, but their families as well. So let's go to the integration part of the system. I know I've talked too much, Gelke, so I'm going to let you do a little talking. Because, I can get very passionate.
You are. That's okay. You should be. It's exciting what we're creating. So step 5, which is the final step of the enrollment process that you will go through with your child, is integrating you into the B.E.A.M ecosystem itself. So, we've gone through all these processes. We invite you to join us on this pathway that we're on. And the way that we're going to integrate you into what's already ongoing is to make you a part of that ecosystem. And by doing that, we will create some family fun activities so that you can strengthen connections with other families. And we'll also introduce your student to other students that are in the B.E.A.M ecosystem itself. Another huge piece of that is the parent resource piece. So we're going to give you as a parent access to tools and strategies to help support your scholar in their journey through B.E.A.M Academy. We keep saying this is an ecosystem. We truly do mean that. So you as the parent are a huge part of that ecosystem itself. So we have to give you the tools that you need and that you can use, and a platform that you can come to if you have questions or things like that as you're on this journey with your child. And then the third final piece of this last step is an ecosystem engagement event where you get to immerse yourself in the B.E.A.M culture and build a relationships with those fellow families. You know, you have to, it's all about that ecosystem coming together with other families that are on the same journey as you as well. Because once again, we're all learning from each other. It's a huge part of what we're about, is that everybody is learning from somebody else, no matter what your age or what level you're at.
Excellent, excellent. Well, as we wrap up today's show, are there any final comments, any final suggestions or points that you want to make for our audience today?
One thing I would like to say to you, if you have not joined us on Facebook, we are on Facebook for B.E.A.M Education. We are on Facebook for B.E.A.M Microschool Academy. And so those dates and times of the information meetings will be advertised both on B.E.A.M Facebook Education, also at beameducation.org, as well as B.E.A.M Microschool Academy. We will also have on there scheduled times so that you can also come to meet the founding team face to face and just enjoy that conversation on our passion for providing your students, your 21st century learner, with a 21st century education.
And please reach out. If you have any questions, please reach out. A team member will get back to you as fast as possible so that you can join us on this journey.
Well, very good. Thank you guys for joining us for another B.E.A.M Bites. I think that's going to wrap it up for today. Please, on all your social media, make sure you like, comment, and share. And we're standing by to be of service to you, your family, and our community. Thank you again for joining us for another episode of B.E.A.M Bites. Until next time, thank you all.